Hi, I'm Dr. Kate Crowley.
And I'm Dr. Erica Levy, and we are the faculty and students at Teachers College, Columbia University in New York City.
We've made this video to help parents and children who are getting speech services and to understand what's the best way to do that.
And this is all from Watson and Loft 2011 from their ASHA presentation that year.
Non-speech oral motor exercises are techniques that do not involve speech production, but are used to influence speaking abilities. These often include blowing bubbles and horns, tongue pushes, wags, curling, puckering, smiling movements, and other mouth gymnastics. Although often used by many SLPs, the legitimate professional literature refutes the appropriateness of non-speech oral motor exercises for intervention to change speech sound productions.
Parents may request non-speech oral motor exercises be used because their child's previous SLP used non-speech oral motor exercises, or their objectives might already be in the child's session plan and treatment plan. They have read testimonial information on the internet encouraging this work or these exercises. There's a proliferation of attractively packaged products available for purchase, or other professionals recommend their use, or these exercises provide something concrete for parents to do with their children under the guise of therapy.
My SLP has my child sticking out her tongue, moving it back side to side before we look on speech. Is this a good idea?
These non-speech movements will not help with speech because the parts of the brain that control the movements for speech are different from the parts that control the non-speech movements. It's a brain thing.
Thank you, Dr. Levy. Now you're going to listen to Q&As, questions and answers from parents and answers by therapists on how to do good therapy for your children.
My child has a repaired cleft lip and palate. To me, it makes sense that blowing must be a good way to get his speech not to come out of his nose.
Well, for over 50 years, it has been shown that blowing exercises will not prevent speech from coming out of the nose. It is surprising that this technique is still being used.
Won't working on chewing and swallowing help my child speak better? Doesn't she need to become good at these non-speech movements before we can work on actually making her talk?
Chewing and swallowing are unrelated to speaking. Even though the tongue, lips, and other part of the mouth are used for speech and non-speech movements do not influence how she talks.
I've been told that many kids are diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech. Aren't these kinds of exercises necessary to help improve their speech?
Children with childhood apraxia of speech need therapy devoted to making speech, not movements that barely mimic speech, because of how the brain organizes information. Children with childhood apraxia of speech have apraxia of speech, so speech is what needs to be worked on, not non-speech tests.
On the internet, I've read information provided by experts who say these exercises work and are necessary to help children learn to speak. It's all over the web. It must be legitimate.
You must use caution about believing information found on websites. Research shows a technique works, not opinions, testimonials, or expert advice. While these statements may be interesting, they do not prove that exercises work. Special care should be taken if encouraged to buy a product.
Physical therapists and occupational therapists often use exercises to improve motor skills. Isn't speech also a motor skill?
Yes, but speech is much more than a motor skill because it involves communication. Speech is different from other motor tasks. Speech is special because it involves language. Speech motor tasks are organized in the brain in a unique way.
My speech therapist says that exercises warm up mouths. What's wrong with that?
Because limited strength is needed to speak, warm-up is not necessary. While a few simple mouth movements may provide some focus on the mouth area, they should only be a very minor part of therapy.
My child can move his tongue up and down very, very quickly. So why can't he make tongue tip sounds such as la or ta?
The tongue can make many different kinds of movements. However, tongue movements for speech are controlled by a different part of the brain than movements that don't involve speech.
The last SOP my child had said oral motor exercises will help develop necessary speech awareness. Don't children need to become aware of their mouth movements in order to improve speech?
Research has shown that young children have little awareness of mouth movements. Children need to learn how different mouth movements affect speech, not mouth movements that are not speech.
It was recommended that my child receive muscle-based therapy because he has low muscle tone. So that must mean his muscles are weak.
Muscle tone and muscle strength are different. Tone refers to the elasticity of muscles at rest. Just because your child has low muscle tone does not necessarily mean that he has weak muscles. Working on strengthening will not have an effect on tone.
My child has something called a phonological problem. Why not mouth exercises for this?
Phonological issues are a problem with the language aspects of talking and do not involve simple mouth movements. Your child needs to learn the rules of speech and language, and these rules are not learned by mouth movements. Therapy must be done in meaningful communication context.
We have fun doing these exercises at home. What can it hurt to do them?
Although these exercises probably won't harm your child, focused talking time is too valuable to be wasted. Work at home should be based on practicing valuable skills that improve speaking.
According to the occupational therapist, my child has speech problems because her mouth is not strong enough. So isn't strengthening the mouth important?
Very little strength is needed to produce speech. Agility and coordination are needed, but little strength. Also, it is surprisingly difficult to accurately determine strength. Therefore, any statements about weakness are questionable.
My child is blowing horns in therapy and has progressed from one horn to the next. That is progress, right?
It is progress in horn blowing, but not in speech. Blowing and speaking are completely different from each other, and doing one well will not have an impact on the other.
So, Dr. Levy, those are our questions from Luff and Watson 2011. What would you like to say to parents whose children may actually be in therapy and getting those non-speech or motor exercises?
I would say you and I have seen this all over the world, and clinicians and parents, everybody should practice evidence-based work, and we hope you will be doing this in the future.
And you can find more information at leadersproject.org, and we're also going to post a few links for you in the comments section.